Well, good morning and welcome to the Modern Practice webcast series. The Modern Practice webcast series is a series of webcasts helping you understand how to put together a modern practice in the cloud. This is one of several presentations. We started off this morning with an introduction to the modern practice. We talked about how we migrate data and information. This one is all about finding data. So once I've got things in a document management system, how do I find that data? And we're going to show you some techniques we can use to make that most effective. And the very last session is all about what we call day-to-day, which is really looking at some scenarios or a day in the life, if you will, of somebody working within a modern practice. Just a quick plug, we have a half-day seminar on December the 13th at 1 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time, which goes for half a day and is useful for your team to be able to come along and have all of this training condensed into one half-day session. Obviously, we have a lot of time during that to go into quite a lot of depth on all the different components of the modern practice. And hopefully team members will be able to walk away from that with the ability to basically do anything with the systems we put in. So finding data, what's it about? It's about document management, and in my mind, and obviously you can tell me if I'm wrong, document management is the art of being able to find stuff when you want to. It's important to realize that there are a number of reasons we use document management, but I think the most important one is being able to find things when we actually need to get to them. So it's the art of finding things. And document management is also the art of protecting your work from others, not necessarily securing other people from seeing your data, but the art of protecting people updating things you're in the middle of updating. Let me give you an example. We worked recently with an organization called GPT here in Australia. They're fairly large. They're the second largest listed property group in Australia, and they had over 1.3 million spreadsheets. And one of the problems they had, apart from the fact they had 1.3 million spreadsheets, was they had what we call version nightmares, where somebody would update a spreadsheet, they send it to five people would update it, they send it back to the first person, and you never really knew which was the right version. So in my mind, document management is those two things. It's being able to find things, obviously important, but also being able to protect versions. So the data you have some view of its integrity. And it's actually the data you want it to be. So in order to make this happen, there are some components, and I want to talk through all of these together. The core of all of this is SharePoint Online. Now, SharePoint Online is a very, very rich, very well-known document management platform, as used by some of the largest enterprises in the world. For example, people like Coca-Cola, Westpac, Dimension Data, National Westminster Bank, all use SharePoint for document management, and it's pretty much understood to be the leading document management solution out there. But it's also fairly difficult to set up and configure and make look nice. And so what we do for smaller customers is we talk about SharePoint Online. That means I don't need to think about setting it up. I only need to think about configuring it. I don't need to think about how many servers you need. I just need to turn it on and off we go. The next component is SharePoint Search, and built into SharePoint is a very rich search infrastructure. It will index everything from documents and presentations through to PDF documents and list items as well. Now, in order for us to search PDFs, we need something called a searchable PDF. Now, most scanners will have the ability to do this, and what they'll do is they'll turn around and take a document and make it searchable. So it layers on top data which has been on what we call OCR'd, or optical character recognized, on top of the document. And that allows SharePoint to index it and allows us to do some very neat things, as you're going to be able to see later. Now, SharePoint's nice, but the interface is through the web, and that can be efficient or it can be really painful. And so we've teamed up with a company out of the UK, although their development's in Israel, called Harmon.ie, and they provide a plugin for your iPad or on top of Outlook, which allows you to do some really neat stuff with your SharePoint document management. And then on top of that, we have folders which we create based on the client. So we've really put together, really what my company does is we're what we call an integrator. We're like the guys who like doing jigsaw puzzles. We take all these technology components and we put them together into one thing, which actually solves your needs. But here are the components, and we're going to talk about how it goes together during this session. So the next thing is folders. Now, traditionally, when you'd have been working with almost any document management system, you'd have created lots and lots and lots of folders. And it's always important when we do something to go back and think about why we created those folders, and why we have a process in our environment. So we use folders as a way of classifying data. Right? The reason we do that is so that there's something around a document which tells us really what it is. So we can look at that in really quickly. And the reason we did lots of folders is because there was no other way of classifying data. And how do you classify a Word document apart from some really complex and horrible file naming convention, which we don't really want to get into. Right? How did we do it? Well, it was really easy to create folders. We just went across and said new folder, and it was really easy. But it gets really hard to find what you want. So when you have an environment where you've got a ton of folders, it actually gets difficult. It's kind of okay, but it's difficult to find what you want. So we're going to propose a new way of working today. We're going to propose we create a folder per client, and then we use SharePoint to classify our documents. And there's method in my madness. So let's move forward, and what we're going to do is take a look at some of that. So first of all, browse versus search. And let me give you an idea. Traditionally, in a document management system, we'd actually go in, and I'm just going to share my screen, so I'll just wait for that to come up. In a document management system, traditionally, we would go into our document management system and we start browsing through folders to find what we wanted. Now, that's all well and good if you've got a server sitting in your office. But when we start doing that on the web, that gets a little bit slow. Let me show you. So I'm going to go into my document center here. Now I need to wait for us to tell the internet that I'm going there, and then it comes back. I'm then going to go down here into clients, which will open up. I'm then going to go into A Squared Advisors. I'm then going to go into 2012. I'm then going to go into tax stuff. I can then find the document I want. Now, I don't know if you'll agree, but I've now just clicked the mouse 6 times, and I have to wait for that click to go all the way to the internet and come all the way back. And it's a bit slow. It really is. But we can do it another way. And the other way we can do it is we start to use search. Search is really important. So if I was to say, for example, I care about anything that has, this is HubOne's Australian business number, or ABN. And this is a number which uniquely identifies HubOne to places like the Australian Taxation Office and others. So if I just click search here, what this is going to do is this is going to search through every document. And those are 2 PDFs which we scanned in. And it's going to pull out every document that has my Australian business number in. So I haven't had to browse anything. So you get an idea for how quick that is. There's other things we can do. For example, I can just go and search on a customer name. So let's do a search on a customer name. Right, so here's a search, right, which contains an email, contains a budget, contains a scan, right, a whole bunch of things there. So let me go back to my document center. You'll see in here, I also have a bunch of folders. Right, what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to choose a search based on a real client name. So I'm just going to type in AGL. And if I hit enter, what it's going to do is it's going to bring back obviously my documents, but also the folder for AGL, which is kind of nice. So you see how quick that search was running, right? Which instead of me going and browsing, and I'm sure you'll admit we just looked at it, instead of me browsing all the way down to find that document, this search is rocket fast. When I then go into the documents folder for AGL, I then have the ability to go and filter on all sorts of things. So I only have a few document types in here. I have my type of document, I have my tax year or when it was modified, and we can work with you to add more and more filters. So instead of us sitting there going, oh, go to this folder, go to that folder, I search, I filter, I find what I want. It's all about making you more efficient. And I just want you to have a think about how faster your life would be if you were searching for things. But the problem is, it's a bit webby, and it's kind of okay, but I don't really see that's a folder. It's just a weird icon. It's just not nice enough. And also, when I get those search results back, I want to be able to check something out. How do I do that? So I mentioned before this thing called Harmony. So what I'm going to do is I am going to just take you to, I'm just going to take you to my email. Now, this is my production email environment. Now, what you'll see on the right is this thing called Harmony. And Harmony is this add-on to Outlook, which gives you access to my SharePoint. So you'll see there, I've got exactly the same folders I had when I was actually in SharePoint. But one of the things I can do with Harmony is search. So let's do exactly the same search we did before, and I'm just going to type in AGL, and I'm going to hit enter. So what it's doing is exactly the same search as we did before. There are my documents. All right, so I can see the AGL folder. Isn't that nice? It looks like a folder. And I can see these documents. And from here, I can instantly go and do a bunch of things. I can edit that document. I can open the folder which it's in. I can check it out. I can look at its version history. I can add notes to other people in my organization about that document. And that's all built in to the Harmony plugin. So I'm not doing anything weird. There's no weird software going on. I'm just using the native features of SharePoint and I'm exposing it in Outlook just to make that kind of finding for stuff faster. So let's just have a little play. I'm going to go back to clients, right? And I'm going to go into, for example, where was it? So let me just search by name, A Squared Advisors, click, 2012. Let me click in there, tax stuff. And that could get me the file, or I could just type in one word in the search terms and up would come everything which matches it, and I can do all my things with it. So you see how fast that's making me work as opposed to a traditional way of browsing. So it's changing the mindset. Right? And what we're doing is we're trying to change how we think about things. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take this one and I'm going to open the containing folder, which shows me the folder where everything is. Here it is. And from here, I can actually do filters. Now, I only have a few, but you can build views in SharePoint, and we can filter these down again, just as you saw in SharePoint. One of the other things you can do, you see I'm in the Hub 1 folder, is I can make that a favorite. And I'm going to add that as a favorite, and I'm going to show how we use that a little bit later. So that's finding for things. Browse versus search. And I'm sure you'll agree, to find data, search is really rocket fast compared to really anything else we do. So search is important. We like you to use search. You're going to have a good experience if you do it. So let's get back to my presentation, if it lets me. Here we go. Right, and we'll move on to slide 7. Right, so browse versus search, now in the browser. Indexing. This is really important when we're thinking about finding data, is indexing. And I'm going to talk a little bit straight after this about version control, but let me talk about indexing. In order to get that incredibly rapid search, when you type a search term, SharePoint is not looking at every one of your documents. That would kind of not be very smart. What SharePoint's done is it's done what we call an index, and it's saying for this word or phrase, right, the following things match it. So for AGL, for example, there's a folder and we've got AGL in 5 or 6 documents. SharePoint in the background is building that index, and for each of you, if you think about the amount of documents you have, that's going to be very big. In order to give you fast search, that's going to be quite a big process to keep that index up to date. It takes SharePoint a little while to do that. So it's important to remember that when I save a file to SharePoint, it will not be instantly available through search. It absolutely is available if you go and browse it or we open the folder, but it's not available through search. So just be aware when you're thinking of how we operate with this, when I create a document and I'm saving it to SharePoint and I'm working with it, I'm working with a folder, I'm kind of doing a browse thing. It's later on, half a day later or later, where I want to go and find something again, that's when search comes into its own. So normally it shouldn't have too much impact in what you're doing. You just need to be aware that that's going on. You know, we always say in IT, you can't put a football down a garden hose. And it's all about, you know, we're trying to do some really smart things here. They just take time in the background to make them happen. But it shouldn't really affect you in any way, shape or form. So I'm going to go back to Harmony and I'm going to talk about some of the things we can do here, just to give you a feel for it. So we talked earlier, the two things I want about document management, first of all, finding things. I think we've really shown how we can find things. The next is protecting people from playing with stuff. So what I'm going to do is I am just going to load Excel. So when you look at me running Office here, I'm actually using Office 2013, which is the new version of Office. Being an IT guy, I'm all into the new versions of things, so I'll kind of show you what I'm doing. So I'm going to create a spreadsheet, and I'm going to call it my frenemies, which is a new term my kids taught me, which is all about friends, which I don't like. Jane, Tom, Alec, and I am just going to save it. Now, I have the ability here to actually save it to SharePoint, because this is the new version of Office, or I can actually just save it on my local machine. I'm just going to put it in my downloads file. I'll call it Book 1. There you go. Now, what I can do with Harmony, I'm just going to minimize Outlook here and show you what I can do. I'm going to open that downloads folder. I'm going to take Book 1. I'm going to hover over Outlook. Outlook will open up. There it is. And I can just drop it into that folder in Harmony. And so what that's doing is that's actually copying it from my local file system straight into SharePoint without me having to do anything funny. I'm just dropping it in there. Now that document's been put in there, and I've checked it in. I've told my Harmony to check it in automatically, and you can see there it is. So if somebody else wants to edit it, they just double click on it. Right, that will open in Excel in a second, hopefully. Just open it. I've probably done something wrong to stop my machine doing things now. Here we go. So here's my book in Excel. It's just loading up, so I should be able to see it in a second. Right, here it comes. So we'll just give it a second to sort of stuff out. Xbook, two workbooks at the same time with the same name. All right, sorry, I didn't close it. I'll close it. All right, okay, let me open it now. I've closed Excel. I'm trying to rush too much. That must be me. What's Excel telling me somewhere? I heard a little ding. All right, let's try again. Open. Here comes Excel. Excel's now, instead of talking to Harmony, it's actually talking to SharePoint. I haven't had to do anything here apart from open it straight from Harmony. Now, Excel's pretty smart. And so's Adobe, and so's Word, and so's all sorts of things. And Excel's going to know in a second that this workbook is checked in. So if I want to edit it, I have to check it out. So I'll do that. Right, so I can now say Jill, Fred, Bob. I'm going to save it. That saved it. And that, you saw in the bottom, uploaded to SharePoint. If I now close it, it says others won't be able to see that unless you check it in. Do I want to check in? Yes, I do. I'll make it a major version. Added more frenemies. And I'm going to save that. And what that's done is that's uploaded it back to SharePoint and checked it in. Don't believe me? Let me have a look at the version history here. And when it comes up in 2 ticks, come on, give me the version history. Version history. All right, refresh. There we go. So, sorry, just had to refresh it. You'll see now down at the bottom, I have the version history. So, Nick created version 0.1, first time I uploaded it. I can actually go and get that specific file, that version, and then Nick added more frenemies, and I can go and get that specific file and that version. So suddenly my version control nightmares have gone away, and I'm handling it all with Harmony. Now let's say, for example, somebody sent me an email with an attachment, so I'll just see if I can find one in here with an attachment. I probably can't. Let me just find, I've got to have something in here with an attachment. Here we go, here's an attachment. Here in Harmony, I can save that to SharePoint. And what comes up is all my favorites. So obviously I have one favorite, or I can go in if I don't have the location as a favorite, and I can do the browsing thing and find where I want to save that document. So we've got that. So what we're talking about is let's go in, let's save documents, let's find documents, let's check documents in, let's put things in any folder we want to. This is actually the Australian government. Haven't really got anything for that, so I'll just pop it in the Hub1 folder. Right, off you go. Right, that's going to upload it to SharePoint, check it in under my name, and start the indexing process so that's available in search. Notice the other thing that's happened with that document now in my Outlook is it's changed the attachment to be a link. Right? So that's no longer an attachment. That's no longer an attachment. That's actually a link. And if I click on that in SharePoint, what it's going to do is it's going to actually open that file for me. I'll show you that. And I can open that file, and I'm now opening it from SharePoint. I'm not actually opening that document locally. It's not stored in my inbox, and it's available for anybody in my business to use, and it's indexed through search. So a bunch of really cool things there. Adopting this new way of working is kind of hard for people. That's why we recommend Harmony, because it works so nicely in with Outlook that you can make all sorts of cool things happen. So let's dive back to the slide deck. Slide 9. Right. Document management, as you've seen, is now very rich. I can easily find things, and I can still browse to them. I can upload things from email, from my local file system. Things get indexed and they're available for search, and they're really easy to find in my entire environment. Not only that, opening a document, editing it, and saving it again is really, really simple when I have Harmony in my environment. There's a lot more we can do. We're just scratching the surface here. But if you have any questions, more than happy for you to reach out to us. Make sure it's tracked. Just email sales@hub1.com and we'll track your request and make sure we get back to you. I'd really like you to thank you for watching this today. I'm going to stop the recording and then feel free to ask me any questions you have.